Yeah, and now we're live. Hello.
Oh,
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Craven. I'm the marketing director of Griffin House. Today, we'll be joined by Dr. Stephen Sanders for encouraging physical activity in preschoolers. Thanks so much for joining us. And thanks for being a part of our Early Learning Book Chats community. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar is a part of our larger community on EdWeb, so it's the Early Learning Book Chats community. If you go to edweb.net/bookchats, you can join our community there, and you'll be able to access all of our resources for free. So everything from online discussions to recordings of both today's webinar and other webinars from in the past, quizzes for CE certificates, as all of our webinars provide opportunities for educators to earn CE certificates. And of course, we have a blog functionality if you'd like to post additional questions or ask the presenter questions. So your CE certificate, it will be emailed to you after 24 hours if you're joining us, if you pre-registered. You'll just need to take the quiz if you join the session exclusively by phone without signing in, or if you're watching this as a recording. To find the quiz, you can go ahead to our community at edweb.net/bookchats, and you'll be able to, within the webinar archives, you can find the particular webinar that you watched for the quiz. And of course, Griffin House sponsors the EdWeb Book Chats webinars, and Griffin House is an award-winning publisher of resource books for parents and teachers of children from ages birth through age 8. So our books are filled with developmentally appropriate and easy to use strategies. Our books provide parents and teachers with the tools they need to bring the joy of learning to young children. So new for this season, we have a handful of books that will be available starting March 1st through June. So if you'd like to take a look at Dr. Sanders' book, which he'll be reviewing today, or any of our other titles, you can go to griffinhouse.com. As part of our sponsorship of the webinar today, we do offer a 20% discount if you use the promo code BOOKCHATS at checkout, again at griffinhouse.com. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Sanders. Dr. Sanders is a university professor and an early childhood consultant specializing in the development of curriculum assessment and instructional strategies for promoting early childhood physical activity. Dr. Sanders has taught and promoted the concept of being physically active for life throughout his career. He's taught university students, he's taught infant, parent, and toddler movement classes, he's taught preschool, elementary, and high school physical education. So he's also, as I mentioned a moment ago, the author of several books and scholarly papers about encouraging physical activity in early childhood. So without further ado, I would like to thank Dr. Sanders for coming and introduce you all to Dr. Stephen Sanders.
And thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here. Thank Griffin House for sponsoring this presentation. What I'm going to do today is take you through a very simple process of motor development for young children. And anytime we talk about motor development, we're talking about the end process, because you can't teach a skill and the skill be taught and learned in one day. It's a process, and it's a process that goes throughout life. So I always like to start presentations talking about the purpose of motor development with preschool children or young children, and the purpose is to guide children in that process of becoming physically active and healthy throughout life. Now, the two major categories of motor development skills with preschool children are locomotion and object control. And I've selected today just to focus on locomotor skills. Maybe sometime in the future we'll come back and have another webinar on ball skills, but we'll look just at locomotor skills. And locomotor skills, this is the way we get around. Locomotor skills are so basic and so simple that we seem to forget about them. yes, all kids are going to walk and jump and hop, but it's the quality of how they do skills that are important. And that's what I would like to talk with you about today. Um, One of the things that really hit me in the last several years is how we as adults uh, keep restricting children's play. And we do it because we have safety concerns, which is fine. But the idea that we're banning games like tag and running on the schoolyard. Uh, if you look at several newspaper articles that have been published in the last several years, tag banned, kindergarten playground now safe for children from running in packs. You know, the popular game of tag has become the latest game to be banned by teachers trying to protect children. Well, this is ridiculous and kind of funny to me that we're banning games that children like to play and that help them develop skills because of safety reasons, when if the play is not safe, that's probably the fault of the adults and not the children. So what I'd like to do today is to provide you some simple definitions about locomotor or traveling skills, to look at some simple research that's out there that is really kind of cool and neat, some of the research that's going on, and then take you through some activities and things that you can do at your school to promote the idea of helping children learn locomotor skills. Now, again, locomotor skills are basic, they're natural, everyone will be able to do them. I'm not going through all of these definitions that you have in front of you, but I wanted you to have them in case you wanted to use them with parents or other teachers. Everybody knows how to walk and to run. We emphasize jumping with young children, really starting at about age 2.5, because we want children to be able to jump off 2 feet and land on 2 feet and remain on balance. That process takes several years. Jumping is not just from 2 feet to 2 feet, but you can jump off of 2 feet, land on 1 foot, jump off of 1 foot, land on 2. A hop is a jump that you jump off 1 foot and land on the same foot. A leap is jumping off of 1 foot and landing on another. So those are what we call even rhythm locomotor skills. And then we have the locomotor skills that are uneven, like skipping and galloping and sliding. Skipping is a hop on 1 foot and then a hop on the other. You know that gallop, 1 foot leads, the other follows. Sliding, we don't really talk about much, but a slide step is simply a gallop that you go in a sideways direction. I want you to know also that at least in the United States, and I see there's a lot of people from other countries watching this, but in the United States, we have national standards related to asking children to achieve certain levels of motor skills and achieve basic traveling and locomotor skills. And every state Department of Education has similar standards. Children should achieve mature forms of basic locomotor skills and be able to perform them in a variety of situations. So let's talk a little about children developing these locomotor skills. Infants begin at about 3 or 4 months to roll over and sit up and scoot on their stomachs and then crawl and stand up and take their first steps. And we all know that these are basic and they're natural patterns, and all children develop these. The key here is, do they develop them at a quality level to be able to use them throughout life? And you say, well, everybody walks to work or walks down the street, so walking is not something we need to work on. But yes, it is. It is the quality. You have children in your classrooms say 4 years old, that can't walk across the room without bumping into a desk or bumping into another child. And there's things that we can provide them and knowledges and concepts to help them understand and perform the simple skill of walking better. And we will get into those in a few minutes. There's research out there about traveling and locomotor skills that suggests that, and I'll show that slide in a minute, suggests that it's important to physical activity throughout life. But there are also another side of this, and that's the side of what we do physically. The researchers call it a cascading effect, has an effect on development in other areas. So traveling skills actually has an effect on social and cognitive development. We know from physical activity that those children that have a strong base of motor skills tend to use those skills to be physically active throughout their lives. And we have a lot of research that also suggests kids that don't acquire those fundamental motor skills, they don't acquire those traveling skills, are going to have difficulty throughout life using those skills and being physically active. So these are some neat and cool studies that have been done in the last several years that just to get you thinking about how important these skills are. Back in the 90s, in this country, we had a big concern about sudden infant death syndrome. And we found out from research and experience that it was better to have babies to sleep on their backs than their stomachs. Research that is out now with infants who are placed in a prone position or on their stomachs, they show higher measures of motor development than those who do not. So children, we've almost, some parents have gone too far with the SIDS thinking, and they place their infants on their backs during the day, and children aren't getting that experience of stretching and developing the shoulder muscles and the back muscles and the muscles in their legs. Infants who spend more hours on their back actually may experience some motor delays. And then when we look at the research on physical activity and cognitive development, it's interesting that, when an infant first starts to sit up, that actually is a locomotor traveling movement that I'm moving from laying down, and although my parent may be propping me up, it's a different level of seeing and transitioning to seeing the world in a different way. There's research out there that suggests that when you move from crawling to walking, that you have an increase in language development in infants. Walking infants show larger vocabularies than crawling infants. So you can see that traveling skills have a lot to do with a lot of learning that takes place with infants. Now, I have these references here, and I've included them at the end of this presentation. There's a lot more there than we have time to cover today, but feel free to look, get on the internet and put those references in and read some of that research that is out there now. So let's talk about how do we do this in our classrooms? How do we help children develop physical skills, specifically traveling and locomotor skills? This is a transition of typically we learn to walk and run and march first, galloping and jumping and landing and skipping comes next. And then look down at the bottom at the skills that are chasing, fleeing, and dodging. Those are the skills that children need to learn to do a whole bunch of things, but first they learn those to play tag games that we'll talk about. In order to teach those skills, we provide what we call cues to children. So cues are simply a short phrase or a word that helps the child do the skill better. And we found through research that children who are presented with these cues and practice the skills understand how to do the skills better. So for example, a simple task like walking. If children understand that when they walk, they need to swing their arms, keep their head up, and look around so that they can see where other people are and where obstacles are, and that when they stop balanced, improve their skills quicker. Same with marching. We have cues. You lift your knees high, you bend your elbows, you swing your arms. Same with running. And the idea is that whenever you practice these skills, and we'll talk about how we practice those in a few minutes, whenever you practice these skills, you also provide the cues. And the rule is, instructionally, that we only provide one cue at a time. So we go out and practice running one day, and we swing our arms when we run. And several weeks later, we might practice bending our elbows, and we emphasize bending our elbows. All of these traveling skills have cues. Galloping, 1 foot leads. So you might even demonstrate to the child, you take a step on your right foot, keep that foot out in front of you all the time, and slide your feet apart together as you move forward. And as we talked about our definition of slide, so slide and a gallop are about the same. You just go in a sideways direction, so the cues are the same. In skipping, you lift one knee, hop on one foot, hop on the other. And then when we get to jumping and working on jumping skills, and I mentioned a few minutes ago, we really want to start children with jumping skills at about age 2.5. And you can have a hoop like is in the picture in a line, or every child has a hoop out in the grass, and they jump over and into and out of the hoops. And when we do that, we want to emphasize to them that they hold their both arms back behind them. They jump off of 2 feet, swing their arms forward, land on 2 feet at the same time, and to try to balance and not fall over when they land. So again, we find when we talk to children about these cues that it helps them learn the skills better. And some of the early childhood programs that I work with, they do jumping activities on a weekly basis. I can go out there and I can ask any 4-year-old in the program, what are the cues for jumping? And they can tell me because they've practiced them. And that helps them, again, learn the skill better. Now, let's talk about movement concepts. This is where safety comes into physical activity. One hand, we have the skills, and the other hand, we have the knowledge component of the skills that we call movement concepts, where the body can move, how the body can move, and the relationships the body has with its parts and the surroundings that it moves through. So let's look at space awareness. I would guess that most all of you in your programs, when students come in the morning or you have a circle time, everybody understands that this is my space. I can't move into your space. You can't move into mine. We have this shared space around us that we all can use. Well, when we use those concepts in a physical activity setting, we practice and practice and practice that we're moving around the room. I have to not get close to you. You can't get close to me. It is my job to get away from you if you get too close. So we'll see in a few minutes when I go through the script with you how we do that. But we really emphasize these knowledge concepts which really relate to safety when you move. We ask children to move in straight, zigzag, and curved pathways. We make sure that they understand directions of forward and backwards and up and down, right and left. The second effort area, particularly worked with 3, 4, and 5 years old, with speeds. We want children to understand that they can move in a slow speed or a middle speed or a fast speed. We want them to know that movement has patterns and beats and cadences to follow. And we also want them to understand force, that you can jump and land lightly, you can land with a strong force, and absorbing force requires that you understand how to stop and stabilize your body when you're moving. The last category of space awareness is relationships. We emphasize these are your body parts. These are how they move. This is what you can do with them. And your body has different roles, particularly when you do traveling skills. You might lead or follow. You might move alone or with a partner or with groups. You move over, under, around, and through. And we find that children that understand the concepts in all three of these areas really begin to understand that I need to move safely. And because I understand space awareness and effort and relationships, I'm more likely to move safely in my environment. So let's look at how the traveling skills and the movement concepts might go together in your programs to help you help children develop traveling skills. What we tell the facilities that we work with is that you practice these skills every day. You use them every day. There ought to be a time to practice them when you're young. So every day, and we suggest to teachers that this is something that you would do before you would go outside for recess, or if you have an indoor space, you can go in and practice. That before we go out and get on any equipment or get any balls or anything else out to play, we always practice our locomotor skills. And you need to set boundaries. So when children go outside, this is the space that we're going to practice our locomotor skills in. You might set cones around the space, and you have to stay within the cones, so you want to set your boundaries. Teachers should demonstrate these skills, particularly skipping and hopping and jumping, and you do not have to be an athlete, a sports enthusiast of any kind to demonstrate these simple skills. So the cue for galloping is take a big step on one foot. So you just simply demonstrate that so that they can see it. Some children are visual learners. And when we do these skills, we don't only want to do them in our big open space, but to put them in other contexts, like the two children there that are jumping, but they're playing hopscotch. Okay, so I want to take you through a scripted task presentation progression. So you have the children, we're going outside, we're in our big open space. You might ask them, spread out in our space so you're not too close to each other. I'd like for you to begin walking around, stay as far away from your friends as you can. Make sure you stay into the boundary. Talk to them about, it is your job, if someone gets close to you, make sure that the responsibility of moving is on the child, on each individual child. If someone gets too close to you, it's your job to move away from them. Okay? I like to use a drum as a signal, and I have my trusty drum here so that when I hit the drum, I want you to stop and freeze. Now, this is when you are able to provide children with a new task. So you freeze, you not move, you take 5 to 7 seconds to explain to them what our next task is. And here's a series of tasks that you might ask them to do. Show me you can walk, and bring our space awareness concepts into this. Show me you can walk in a curved pathway. Show them what a curved pathway is and practice curved pathways. This is something you already do in the classroom. You may have kids draw on a piece of paper what a straight, curved, or zigzag pathway is. Have them bring their paper out to the movement space and ask them to walk in the pathway that they have drawn. But so we walk in a curved pathway. Can you walk in a curved pathway in a forward direction? Can you walk in a curved pathway in a backward direction? Then hit your drum. Everybody stops and freezes, and you say, okay, now we're going to gallop in a curved pathway. Go. They do that for 15, 20, 30 seconds till you see that they're slowing down a little. You hit your drum again. Can you gallop in a zigzag pathway? Can you gallop in a straight pathway? You go through all the locomotor skills in this way, and you're not going to do that every time you come out, but you might use different skills each time. Today we're going to emphasize skipping. You go over the cues for skipping, or the one cue that you want to work on that day, and then you suggest, can you skip in a curved pathway? Can you skip in a straight pathway? Can you skip backwards in a straight pathway? Can you skip how fast can you skip? Show me you can skip at a middle speed. So that's our 5-minute warm-up every day before children go to the playground. You will find it amazing how the children, when you work like this, will pick up those skills and learn them, and they will be with them throughout their lives. This is a good way to do locomotor skills. It's easy. It takes 5 minutes a day, and children are able to learn these skills over time. So now let's look at 3 new skills: chasing, fleeing, and dodging. Kids have been playing chasing and fleeing games since the turn of time. Chasing games challenge a player to catch someone or get away from them. Now, think about this if you're a parent for a minute and you want your child to participate in sports. Every sport you can think of has some kind of chasing, fleeing, or dodging part to it. If you're playing basketball or soccer, you're dribbling a ball and someone is chasing you to take the ball away. Even games like tennis or volleyball, the footwork that you learn from chasing, fleeing, and dodging helps you learn in those games. So I want to say to you that these are basic fundamental skills that the better children learn these, the better they're going to be able to participate and move throughout life, whether it's a physical activity or just walking up the stairs and going to work. So that I won't read all these definitions to you again. I provided them so that you will have them. But basically, chasing is traveling to get away. And the cues for chasing, number 1 is to watch the hips And if a child moves his shoulders in one direction and then moves in another, they may fake you out. But if you're watching the hips, wherever the hips move, that's where the child's going to go. So children who understand that can be better at chasing, fleeing, and dodging activities. The other cue for chasing is to move the player or chase the player into a corner. So if you were playing a basketball game, you would try to trap them into the corner where they couldn't get away. The skill of fleeing is simply to pursue away from a person or objects. I love this photo where the ducks are chasing the girl, but fleeing is trying to get away. We have cues for fleeing, that you change directions quickly. So you go one way and then you go another, and you change their speeds from fast to slow. And going back to the safety issue with tag games, children who understand these cues can play those games in a safe way. Children who have not had these experiences tend to be the ones that you're concerned about for safety while they play the games. Skill of dodging, quickly move the body in a direction other than the original line of movement. So you're trying to get away, you go one way and you quickly go another. Dodging cues include changing levels or changing directions quickly. Now, I wanted to make sure that I put this slide in for everyone. For us in the United States, we have this culture that is built up over 40 or 50 year period where dodgeball has been part of physical education. The skill of dodging and dodgeball are two different things. We are not talking about playing dodgeball. In fact, the reference at the bottom, if you need to show those standards to anyone, there's a paper from the National Association for Sport and PE. We do not play dodgeball in physical activity classes or in physical education classes. Appropriate instructional practice guidelines suggest that human target games, such as dodgeball, these are not activities that we'd use with children. They are not safe, and they don't help children develop skills. Thus, they don't help children become physically active throughout life. So, what are the kinds of things that we need to do to help children get ready to play chasing, fleeing, and dodging games to play tag? Well, it's very simple. Children need to obtain the basic traveling skills that we just discussed. They also need to understand space awareness, effort, and relationship concepts. And if they've been through the activities that we just talked about and scripted, they're more likely to play those games safely. In the programs that we work with, we find that children that somewhere between 4 and 5 years of age are certainly ready to play tag-like games. So a note about safety. Tag's exciting, children love it, increases the speeds, but we as adults can monitor those speeds. We need to be out and play those games with them and assist them. So when I say monitor the speed of a tag game, instead of asking children to run when they play, you might ask them to, everybody has to skip. The tagger has to skip, everybody else has to skip. So that slows the movement down some. Or you have to gallop, or you have to move backwards. So there's a lot of ways that you can slow the movement of the game down. We always want to talk to children about when you tag, you don't tag hard, you tag soft. We'll talk about that in just a second. So Here are some activities that you would want to go through with children before you actually played tag games. We've just described some of them. Start having children walk slowly, gradually increase their speeds so that they can move without collisions. I like to play a game where I use my drum and ask the children to move to the beat of the drum. So you start the drum slowly, and they move slowly, and then you speed it up, and they move quickly, and you slow it down. So when they are playing these games, we as teachers are emphasizing that your head's up, you move on balance, you stay far away from your friends, and that way you move safely. We sometimes put cones out in the middle of our space and ask children to move throughout the space around the cones. Again, they're learning to move without bumping, and you've added different obstacles to the space, which makes it more challenging. Another idea is to have children run quickly from one place to another. Put cones out in the space or the room, and ask children run from one cone to the next and stop, and then find another cone and run and stop. So again, these are all preliminary activities. Getting children ready to play games, help them with those skills. So let's play tag. Tag is a game that involves one or more players. Someone's chasing, someone's fleeing. We need to demonstrate to children safe tagging. I like to use a scarf. And to start out a game, I would give everyone in the class a scarf and talk to them about when we tag softly on the shoulder like the wings of a butterfly. And everyone has a scarf, and I ask them, okay, I want you to go out throughout the space, and I want you to touch everybody on the shoulder with your scarf. Demonstrate to them what an unsafe tag is. Hold and push too hard. That we can't do that. Tags have to be safe. In tag games, in child development centers and in schools, there's no exclusion. We're not playing the game and you're out. So let's talk about how we will go through about with that. Okay, so we're going to start playing a tag game. To begin, all the players spread out in the area. The teacher tells them what movement they're going to be using, running, skipping, hopping. I usually suggest when you introduce tag games to 4 and 5 years old that the teacher is the tagger the first time that you play. And that just gives them the idea of how to tag. Then if you get tagged, the player freezes. So I tag you, you're frozen, you have to stand there, you cannot move. Okay, that does not mean you're out of the game. And typically, you're only frozen for a couple of seconds. To unfreeze a player, another of the children has to come over and do something to unfreeze them. And we'll go through the different things you can do. When you're unfreezing your classmate, you can't be tagged, so the taggers know that rule. You can't wait till they finish and then tag both of them. You have to go run and tag someone else. Okay. So let's look at a variety of tag games and talk about them. You probably, in most of your settings, have a class of 10 or 12 or 14 children. You still have your boundaries for your space. so you have a large space for kids. If you have that number, 12 or 14, I usually like to have 2 children be the taggers at the same time. So you have 2 children with scarves. One game you might play is name tag. So when you're tagged, you're frozen. You hold your hand out like you're going to shake hands, and one of your classmates has to come over, shake your hand, and you say, "I'm Johnny," and "I'm Mary," or whatever your name is. And when you've done that, the game is over. You're not frozen anymore, and you go flee away from the taggers again. Excuse me. Children love tunnel tag. So when playing tunnel tag, as soon as you're frozen, children put both hands on their head and put their feet about shoulder width apart. To get unfrozen, another child comes from behind and goes under the tunnel that you formed with your feet and crawls through, and then you're unfrozen and you start running again. Before I look at some of the other games, after about 2 to 3 minutes of two children being taggers, you want to stop the game and switch. So you take the scarves, give them to 2 other children, and let them be the taggers. High five tag really emphasizes the skill of jumping. So when you're playing high five tag, you might have the children move to flee away only by jumping on 2 feet or jumping on 1 foot. So when you're tagged, you put one hand up in the air, another child comes and faces you, and at the same time you both jump in the air and do a high five, clap your hands together, and then you're unfrozen. High 10 tag is very similar. You just put both your hands out in front of you, a child comes up, you jump both at the same time, and you do high 10. Fist tag was given to me about 2 or 3 years ago when we were working with a 4-year-old group, and a child came up to me and said, "Hey, I've got a way to do this." And I said, "What?" I said, "I'm going to call it fist tag." And what the child did was saw something on TV where people did a fist bump. And as soon as you did the fist bump, your fingers came open and they flew away. So to play fist tag, when you're frozen, you would hold one hand out in front of you as a fist, and someone comes up and does a fist, and then you both open your fingers up and you fly away and start running again. Some additional tag games we like to play is alphabet tag. So this helps reinforce some of the things that you might be doing in the classroom with alphabet. So you have your 2 taggers. When you're tagged, you're frozen. You form a body shape in the shape of an alphabet letter. So A, B, C, X, T, whatever it is. A child has to come by and say, "You are a," whatever letter they think you are, and they get 3 guesses. If they don't get it right, you're unfrozen and you go. But they guess the shape of the alphabet letter. Math tag is really quite fascinating when you watch kids play this. When children get frozen, they take their hands and they hold up a certain amount of fingers. And to get unfrozen, someone has to come by and add those fingers together. And since I have 2 + 1 is 3, they would say 3, and then they're unfrozen and can go. We've also tried to do math tag with minus. What's 2 - 1? And that's, for some reason, that's a little harder for 4-year-olds to pick up. The next games are probably for older children, but I wanted to put them in here so that you could see the progression. Do-si-do tag is like a square dance move. When you get tagged, you cross both your arms, and we usually play this tag game when we do skipping as a traveling skill. So do-si-do tag, you cross your arms, someone skips in front of you, they skip around behind you, you do what is called a do-si-do, and you're unfrozen. Swing your partner tag is very similar. You hold your arm out, your elbow up, and someone skips by, you lock arms, you move in a circle, excuse me, and you're unfrozen and you move on with the game. Dribble tag involves the use of a ball, so you're dribbling a ball. In this game, and this again is for older children, 5 to 6 to 7, in this game, everybody's it. So you're dribbling the ball, and your job is to dribble your ball, and with the other hand, try to knock the ball away from another person. So this, you can see this is a little higher skill level than preschool. The last one there is one of the most fun games I've seen 4-year-olds play is shadow tag. Now you're going to need a bright sunny day and an area where you can see your shadow on the ground. Everybody's a tagger, and your job is to go around and jump on another person's shadow and not let anyone jump on your shadow. We've gone through this quickly, but I want to emphasize that traveling and locomotor skills, yes, develop naturally, but the quality of how they develop is up to us as adults. We need to help children understand the cues to those skills and the concepts that go with them so we can help them do those skills better. And if we do, they can take those skills throughout their lives and do whatever they would like to do. The references are here at the end. Please look through those and hopefully they're helpful. I've enjoyed doing this with you today. I believe we probably have some questions, and I'll be glad to help you out. My email is listed there. Please feel free to email if you have any questions after the presentation.
Hello, thank you so much. That was awesome. And we definitely saw a lot of questions and a lot of communication during the presentation. So it sounds like a lot of you guys, a lot of our listeners are already implementing some of these ideas. There's a lot of conversation about the tag tactics. So that was really cool to see. So a couple of questions. We have time for a few. One person shared that circle time is still a challenge for a number of students, and she in her pre-K class, and she was asking for, maybe do Dr. Sanders have some strategies to help engage students before circle time or maybe even during circle time to get them to kind of focus?
Well, of course, I don't know the context of the situation of the person with the question, but I've done circle time where I actually demonstrate, and I don't mash any children, but I actually demonstrate going over and gently sitting on a child and asking them, and I'm not really sitting on them. I have my arms down, but everybody has a fun time doing it. But I actually want them to see that only one person can get in this space. I can't be in your space. You come and sit on my lap. You can't be in my space. I can't do anything if you're in my space. And I think this is more of a cognitive process for children than it is a physical process. You know, they need to understand and respect the space of others. That's why when moving out in open space and practicing traveling skills, we always talk to children about it is your responsibility to stay away from others and not bump into them. It's not their job, not their responsibility to stay away from you. It's your responsibility. And in life, that's what this is. It's our responsibility for our own movement. Um, Another answer, and I'm sure teachers already do this, but we have them have their own carpets or a paper plate that they've decorated to sit on, and sometimes those things work and sometimes they don't. You could make the circle bigger. A lot of times we make our circles too small, and so you are sitting on top of each other, but if you make the circle bigger, then there's more space between you and the next person. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's great. And someone actually just asked another question that's a little bit similar, but someone was asking if there are physical activities for in class when students start to get tired or maybe need some exercise, maybe need to liven them up a little bit.
That's a great question. And one of the challenges with that question is movement requires space. So there's a lot of things that you can't do in the classroom because of safety reasons. So for example, your classroom is mostly chairs and tables and you don't have much of an open space. You can't give everybody a ball and ask them to throw or bounce. But there are some things you can do at their desk. So for example, we're going to take a 2-minute break and we're going to practice standing on one foot. If you want to hold your desk with one hand and stand on one foot, now stand on the other foot. Or if you have space similar to what you would use at circle time, you can work on the concepts of body shapes. So can you make a thin shape with your body? Can you make a round shape with your body? What other shape can you make? Can you make a twisted shape? But you're really working on both concepts and making body shapes, but it doesn't require a lot of big body movement, so the activity can be safe in the classroom.
Sure, that's great. So someone else had another question that maybe we have time for one or two more questions because I think they're really good. Someone asked, as far as timing is concerned, so do you recommend, is it better to have outside playtime before or after lunch for preschoolers? Because it sounds like this particular person that was asking said, a lot of times preschoolers have this surge of energy after snack time or lunchtime, and she's seen it done both ways, and we all have. So, what's the best practice?
I'm afraid I don't know the researched answer to that question, but I would suggest that it's not either morning or either afternoon, that it's both, and that you should probably divide your time up. If you're now going out for 30 minutes in the afternoon and the school schedule only allows that, maybe you can work the school schedule where you're doing 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the afternoon. We all know that having a preschool child in a classroom for 3 hours in the morning is too is too long for them not to move, and is not the best thing. But we put schedules on children, and we all understand that there's schools have policies and ways of doing things, and sometimes they're best for children and other times they're not. But the key to that, I think, is to divide those times up so they get out for more periodical times instead of just once a day.
That's great. Well, thank you. And I hope that that's something that, like you said, maybe you just need to kind of work with the schedule a little bit, or the school schedule a little bit, to see if there's some flexibility. So hopefully that's possible for our listeners. So thank you so much, Dr. Sanders. So with that, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And as a reminder, we do have a promotion available to you. It's 20% off your purchase if you just use the promo code BookChats. You can, like I said earlier, you can take a look at Dr. Sanders' books at griffinhouse.com, as well as all of our other resources for parents and teachers. Just use the promo code BookChats at checkout. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. Sanders, for your time. That's all the time we have for today. But if you do have additional questions and would like to pose them to our community and or to Dr. Sanders, go ahead and post them on our blog on edweb.net/bookchats. Again, Griffin House is excited to sponsor the Book Chats, Learning Community or Early Learning Book Chats community on EdWeb. So thank you again for your time, and please do have a good day today.